This is Math 2, Unit 11, Lesson 3A, titled Imaginary and Complex Numbers. Okay, in the past, and by in the past I mean just a few minutes ago. We just did one of these when we were working on last night's worksheet. If I gave you the square root of, we ended up on that worksheet with the square root of -4. That's what we had, correct? And what did we say it was? No real solution. Do you agree? Just a few minutes ago, we came up with this problem. We were solving an equation. We ended up with the square root of -4, which was no real solution, which we ended up putting, there were no x-intercepts. Do we all agree with that? Okay, now, starting from this lesson, we will be working with imaginary numbers and eventually complex numbers. Imaginary numbers. Now, imaginary numbers do not help us with x-intercepts. Imaginary numbers will not help us with x-intercepts. If you end up with something like this when you're solving for x-intercepts, you'd still end up with no x-intercepts. But if you're just solving, or if it works, if they automatically give you imaginary numbers, we're going to learn how to work with them today. Or if you're finding roots or solutions, you can end up with imaginary solutions. All right, here it goes. By definition, the square root of -1 equals I. That is just something you will need to know for the rest of your math career. The square root of -1 equals I. Its definition, it's given to us. The square root of -1 equals I. Okay, so from now on, if you see the square root of -1, you're not going to put no real solution. You're going to put what? I. Again, unless they're asking you for x-intercepts. That's a little different. Okay, so what if I gave you the square root of -36? Ignore the negative. Is 36 a perfect square? What is the square root of positive 36? So what's the square root of -36 become? 6i. That's the only difference. Okay. The negative makes it I. You are correct. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of a negative number is I. Okay. So the square root of -25. 5i. And no plus or minus, because you only do plus or minus when you square root both sides of an equation. We're not doing that here. They're giving us the square root. Okay, square root of -8. Is 8 a perfect square? Do you guys agree it's not a perfect square? But does it break down into any pairs? Yes or no? What pair is coming out? The pair of 2's. And what's going to come out with that 2 that's coming out? The I. Hello, Mrs. Torres. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Julian? Okay, does everyone see where we got 2i root 2? Yes? Okay, now, side note on this one. I need those side conversations to stop, please. Side note on this one. This is the way I'd like you to write it from here on out when you end up with an answer like this. But technically, the mathematically correct way, and I'm pointing this out if you're ever taking like a state test, SAT test, you may see it like this. Or even our test that we take at the end of this unit. Is 2i root 2 and 2 root 2i the same thing? Yes, technically this is the mathematically correct way. Your real number comes first and then the I, 2 root 2, I. The reason I want you to write it this way is because sometimes kids get too messy with this and they write it like that. Is that the same thing with the I underneath the radical? No. So, some kids are like, oh, I'll be really careful, and I still end up marking it wrong. So just write it this way from now on, but know when you see it this way, that is the same thing. It's actually mathematically correct. All right. Next piece, we're going to rewrite using the imaginary number I. Number 1, square root of negative 49. That one's easy because it's a perfect squared. What's the answer? Does everyone agree it's 7i? Okay, no plus or minus because we're not square rooting both sides. The square root was given to us. Number 2, square root of, bless you, negative 7. Is 7 a perfect squared? Okay, you're looking for x-intercepts. It's no real solution, but I told you to rewrite using what? Imaginaries. Okay, so let's take a step back. Is 7 a perfect squared? Does it break down into any pairs that will come out? So what's the only thing that comes out of this one? I, and what stays in? I root 7 is your answer. So it's kind of like this one here, but the 2 came out with the I because they were pairs. There are no pairs here, so this is just I root 7. Okay, let's try another one. Number 3, square root of negative 24. Is 24 a perfect square? No, for sure an I is coming out, but what can we do with 24 that did not work with the 7? Break it down. Tell me your numbers. Please put your phones away. What numbers would you use? There's more than one choice. 12, 3, 4. What do you guys want to use? 6 and 4. If anyone else used 8 and 3 or 12 and 2, go for it. 2 and 3, 2 and 2. What is that? 1, 2, 3 twos. 1, 2, 3, and a 3. Just going to put that negative sign in there. Okay, what's coming out? All the 2s or just one set? One set. And what's staying inside? 6. What's going to come out with this 2? The negative. And it doesn't come out as a negative. It comes out as what? I. So 2i comes out, root 6. Does everyone see where we got 2i root 6? Break down the 24s you usually would. You end up with 2 root 6, and then because of the negative, it's 2i root 6. Questions on any of these? All right, let's just do a few more really quick. I'm going to give you number 4 is the square root of negative 11. Number 5 is the square root of negative 81. And number 6, the square root of negative 12. I'm going to have you guys do those quickly. All right, are we good? What comes out of this one? Any numbers or just the I? I root 11. Do you guys see how that works? Is 81 a perfect squared? So it's not just 9, it is 9i. This one is 12 a perfect squared? No, but does it break up? 4 and 3, 2 and 2. What's coming out? And what's coming out with the 2? So 2i root what? 3. Did you guys get those answers? Yes? Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is what is a complex number. That's in our title of our notes. A complex number looks like this. A plus bi. A plus bi. A is your real number. Bi is your imaginary number. Real, imaginary. Got it? A plus BI. You always have to write it this way. You never write BI plus A, and it could be plus or minus, but you want to make sure it's written in this form where A and B are real numbers. Okay, are we ready? All right, find the sum or difference. Find the sum or difference. Okay, number one. In parentheses, 7 minus 2i, close parentheses, plus parentheses, negative 3 plus I. What's in between those two parentheses? Are we going to be doing double distribution here, yes or no? No, this is a plus sign, and I've told you before, if there's a plus sign with nothing to distribute, what do we do with the parentheses? Drop them. That's a 2. And all we're doing here is combining like terms. What's 7 plus negative 3? Because those are my two real numbers. What is it? 4. And then we combine negative 2i plus 1i, just like you would x's. What's negative 2i plus 1i? Positive or negative? So minus I. 4 minus I is your answer. Would it be okay to write negative I plus 4? No. Your real number comes first, your imaginary part comes second. 4 minus I. 7 minus 3, or 7 plus negative 3 is 4. Negative 2i plus 1 is negative 1i. 4 minus I. Number 2, 1 plus 5i in parentheses minus parentheses 3 minus 2i. Is this one I can drop the parentheses, yes or no? I have to distribute the negative. Good job. So I drop the parentheses on the first one, 1 plus 5i. And as I drop this one, I distribute. So it's negative 3 plus 2i. Does everybody see how that worked? Is that a yes? Okay. And then you combine like terms. What's 1 and negative 3? Negative what? Negative 2. And then 5i and 2i plus 7i. Yes or no? Okay. And that's it for this one. Negative 2 plus 7i. Questions? Okay. I'm going to move on to a different type of problem. Before I do, I'm not going to show you one of these, but just a what if, because you will have some in homework. What if there was a minus 2, and just instead of just distributing a negative 1, what would you distribute? A negative 2. You guys can handle that? Okay. Let's move on then to the different types of problems you're going to see. Can I move this, flip this over? Okay. Multiply. Number 1, 5i times 3i. 5i times 3i. We multiply as usual. What's 5 times 3? And you multiply i's just like you would x's. So pause on this. What's x times x? And do not say 2x. What's x times x? X squared. So what's I times I? I squared. What the heck does I squared equal? I will tell you this, you do not ever leave it as I squared. If you leave I squared on your paper, it's wrong. The only thing you should ever have as far as i's go is just an I or a negative I, but never an I squared or an I cubed or an I to the 4th. So what is I squared? Let's figure that out, because you will need to know this. Not only in this class, but your next year's math class, as well as years to come. Okay, I'm going to write down the definition again that we had on the other page, or the meaning of I. What did I equal? The square root of -1. Does everyone agree with that? Yes or no? Okay. And we're trying to figure out what I squared is. So what would happen if I squared both sides? We learned about, or we've talked about, inverse operations. Is square root and squared, are they inverse operations? What do they do to each other? Leaving behind what? And there it is right there. What does I squared equal? -1. I squared is -1. So whenever you have an I squared in an answer, is it okay to leave it as I squared? You will always change it to -1. So what does 15I squared become? 15 times -1, which is -15. Make sense? Yes? Okay. Number 2, 7I times -2I. What's 7 times -2? And what's I times I? Don't say it any, just write it like this. What's I times I? I squared. Is it okay to leave an I squared in your answer? No. -14 times what's I squared equal? And what's -14 times -1? +14. Questions? Okay. Number 3, 2 plus 3I times 4 plus 5I. Okay, this is more like what I had on the other page as far as the parentheses go. Why did I put it here in the multiply section? Is there a plus or minus sign in there? So is this a double distribution problem? Yes, it is. Those of you that like the window method, you should do the window method at this time. Those of you that do double distribution, you are doing the double distribution. Two times 4 is 8. 2 times 5I is 10I. Keep going. Yes. Yes. If you are doing the window method, you would have 2, 3I, and then you would have 4 and 5I. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3I is 12I. 5I times 2 is 10I. And 5I times 3I is 15I squared. And these here would be your like terms. Okay, so we have 8 plus what? What's 10I plus 12I? 22I. And be very, very careful with this last piece because it's not like what we're used to. What is 15I squared? -15. Good job. Who gave me that? Was that? Was me. Good job. Cesar said -15. Does everybody see how he got -15? We are going to keep on going. Was that John? Okay, good. Before I address that, does everyone see that 15I squared is -15? Okay, John, why do we have to keep on going? What piece here can I still combine? Okay, so do you agree this is not like what we're used to? Usually when we did our double distribution, we didn't have to go this extra step, but here we do. So what's 8 and -15 give me? Positive or -7? Plus 22I. Remember, your real number comes first, your imaginary number comes second. -7 plus 22I. Got it? Okay. Before we put this away, because I do want to talk about a few that you have on your homework, I want to show you a few, and then before I do all the big long table, we'll take our work out and do it there. Number 4, what if I gave you 5I times 2I times 7I? What's 5 times 2? 10. times 7. What's 10 times 7? 70I squared or I cubed? Can I leave it as I cubed? No. Do I have anything in our notes that verify what I cubed is? Okay, so for now, here's what you do. We know what I squared is, so write it as I squared times I. Before I go further, when you add exponents, would you agree that I squared times I is indeed I cubed? Yes or no? What is I squared? We know that one. It's -1. So what's -1 times I? -I. So we just figured out that I cubed is -I. So what's 70? -70 or -70I? 70 times -I is negative what? Is it okay to have an I in your answer? I said that earlier. You should only have I's, no I squared or I cubed. So is this answer okay? Yes? What if I gave it to you like this? Let's see. 3I times 5I times 2I times 3I. All right. I would do these two. What's 5 times 2? And what's 3 times 3? 3 times 3? 9. And what's 9 times 10? 90. I squared, I cubed, or I to the 4th? I to the 4th? Okay. Do we have anywhere in our notes what I to the 4th is? Yes or no? Okay, so let's do what we did earlier. How many squareds can I get? Because that's the one I know. I squared times I squared. How many I squareds do I have here? And is that enough to give me I to the 4th? So what does one of the I squareds become? So I end up with -1 times -1. So what does I to the 4th equal? What's -1 times -1? So I to the 4th equals 1. So what is 90 I to the 4th equal? 90. 90 times 1 is 90. Got it? Is that a little tricky? All right. Questions here. All right. I want you guys to take out your packets because you have a big chart of the I's, and we might as well get them done right now since we've just been talking about it. Here's your worksheet. Do you see how all of this is what we were just doing in our notes? Yes? What's the answer for number 4? Right here, guys. What's the answer for number 4? 4, not just 4, but 4 what? 4I. What about number 3? 1I. Or just I. Good. Okay, let's flip it over to the back really quick. What are you doing in this section up here? Adding, subtracting, or double distribution? Double distribution on these 20 through 25. And here's the chart. Does everybody see the one I'm talking about? Yes or no? Okay, let's fill in what we know using our notes and what we just did. I to the 1st is just I. There's nothing we can do with that. It's just I. Do you guys agree with that? And is it okay to leave I in your answer? Yes, it is. I squared, we've talked about that one already, and everyone needs to have that one memorized. What is I squared? -1. Do you guys agree with that? Okay, I cubed, it's in your notes. We figured it out. What was I cubed? And I to the 4th, we also did in our notes. What is it? 1. Okay, so we have that part filled in. What's the next one they're asking us for? I to the 5th. Now, there's more than one way you can do this. We can do it with all the I squareds like I showed you earlier, or you can change it to I to the 4th times I. Do you agree when I add those together, I get I to the 5th? Why would I do this? Because I know I to the 4th is what? 1. Okay, do you want to do it this way or the way I did in notes with all the I squares? All the I squares? Yes? You know what? All the I-squares work when you don't have the chart, because when you don't have the chart, you don't always know the one before. How many I-squareds can I get with I to the 5th? 2, 3, 4, another I-squared, or just I? 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that work? Okay, what do these two I-squareds give me? This one is what? -1. What about the second one? Another -1. And what's the last one? It's just I. What's -1 times -1 times I? 1I. Can I just write I? Is that the same thing? Yes or no? I to the 6. Can I get an even amount of I-squareds in there? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that enough? How many -1s am I going to have? And that's going to be positive or negative? Negative what? All right, I to the 7th. Can I get an even amount of I-squareds in I to the 7th? So let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with one I left over. Does that work? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes or no? Okay, how many -1s do I have here? Because each I-squared's a -1. I have 3 of them. Do you agree? And what do I have at the end? -1 times -1 times -1 times what? I. Is it going to be positive I or negative I? Negative I. Is anybody seeing a pattern yet? Let's see. I, -1, negative I, 1. Starts over. I, -1, negative I. Is this one going to be 1? Let's check it really quick. Can I get an even amount of I-squareds in I to the 8th? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that right? How many -1s do I have? And if I have 4 -1s, would it indeed cross out to a positive? Yes. Okay, so where do they start to? Looks like here. 2, 3, 4. Is that right? Did I mark it up in the right spot? I, -1, negative I, 1. I, -1, negative I, 1. What's this one going to be? I, and then -1, and it continues. Does everybody see that? Yes or no? Okay, so how do you do these big numbers, like to the 46th and to the 28th? Anybody know? Okay, nobody knows? All right, so I'm going to show you. Is everybody ready? Oh, first off, we see the pattern? Yes? One way to remember the pattern, I won, like yay, I won, with negatives in the middle. Does everybody see that? I won, with negatives in the middle. Again, I won, with negatives in the middle. Do we all see that? Yes? Okay. You can probably squeeze it in here. Maybe we'll do it in there only because I don't want to put in a separate piece of paper. We're going to figure out the shortcut. Okay, so I to the 1st, I to the 2nd, I to the 3rd, I to the 4th. What was the shortcut without looking over here, or not the shortcut, but the way we fill this in? It was I won. What's next? Was it I won? With the negatives where? Okay, does everybody get what I'm saying by I won? Yes, we're celebrating I won with negatives in the middle. Okay, so let's see if we can find a pattern so we can use shortcuts. This is first power, second power, third power, fourth power, and then does it repeat? 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Yes or no? Let's look at the 5th. Was it I? 6, -1, 7, negative I, 8, 1. Yes or no? Yes? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I didn't go as high as 12, but does a 9 and 10 match? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, so when you have to the power of 40, oh, actually we can do this one right now. What is I to the 12th? It's right here. What is I to the 12th? 1. Okay. This up here, you're writing the pattern. And that's what I wrote over here. So you can just transfer this in there. That's the pattern. All right, so here's the question for you guys. When you have it to the 46th power, or on the test you have it to the 120th power, do you want to keep counting through until you get to 120? No. If you get stuck, technically you can, but that's going to take a really long time. Do you guys agree we're counting by fours? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes or no? All right. So what you look at is your remainder. What you look at is your remainder. I'm going to have you guys quickly look here. When you divide 5 by 4, what's your remainder? Can you guys do that? 5 divided by 4, what's your remainder? What is it? 5 divided by 4, what's your remainder? 1. Okay, I'm going to put a little R1. What about 9? When you divide 9 by 4, 2, 8, is there also a remainder 1? Yes or no? Okay, so if they give you a number, you always divide it by 4 because that's the pattern. If your remainder is 1, this is going to be your answer. Let's try the next set. What are we going to divide by? We're going to divide by 4 always, but into what two numbers? 6 and 10. 4 goes into 6 how many times? I didn't leave myself enough room. What's the remainder? Let's try this one. 4 goes into 10 how many times? Twice. Is the remainder also 2? All right, so when you have a remainder of 2, it's going to be the same as I squared. Do you see how the numbers match? 1 with the first power, 2 with the second power. Yes or no? All right, let's take this set. What do you think the remainder is going to be here? Let's check it. 4 times 1, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the remainder 3. 4 times what is 11? 2, 8, 9, 10, 11 is the remainder 3. Yes? This last one's tricky. What do you think the remainder is going to be? What is it? None. Kids often say 4. Can you have a remainder 4 when you're dividing by 4? Should you ever have a remainder 4 if you're dividing by 4? Yes or no? All right, so let's check it. What's 8 divided by 4? With a remainder of nothing. What's 12 divided by 4? 3 with a remainder of 0. So what's the remainder on this one? 0. All right, so do this one really quick before you guys leave. What's 23 divided by 4? Anybody do that? What's 23 divided by 4? We're doing that one right there. 23 divided by 4 is what? 5. What's 4 times 5? With the remainder of what? 3. Remainder of 3. What's our answer going to be? -1. Do you guys see how that works? If you don't believe it, you can keep counting. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Did I get, oh, I ended up in the wrong spot. Sorry. Is it -I? Remainder 3, remainder 3, yes, -I. Did I point at the wrong one? I don't know what I did. Apologies, but thank you for whoever caught it. Do you guys agree it's -I for remainder 3? Yes or no? And when we counted through, that is where I ended up, right there. Are we good?